So we are looking at this massive contradiction right in front of us.
Yeah, a really massive one.
And honestly, it is kind of hiding in plain sight. I mean, by mid-2026, which is literally right now, OpenAI is reporting something like 800 million weekly users.
Right. Staggering.
It is. And the survey data tells us that 75% of workers are using AI daily. The adoption rate has practically doubled just between 2023 and 2024. It feels like it is absolutely everywhere.
Oh, totally. You can't escape it.
But here is the catch, and it is a pretty staggering one. 74% of organizations admit they haven't seen any tangible value from these AI investments yet.
It is a remarkable disconnect. I mean, you are looking at a technology being adopted faster than literally any consumer application in human history.
Right.
But then when you pull back to the enterprise level, the actual return on investment is, well, it's effectively a ghost.
A ghost, yeah.
It just isn't materializing on the balance sheets the way all the initial hype suggested it would.
Okay, let's unpack this, because that is the entire mission for our deep dive today. We are exploring a really fascinating piece of research called The Deployment Paradox by Dr. Jonathan H. Westover.
Yes, a great piece of work.
He analyzes some truly unprecedented telemetry data from over 1,500 ChatGPT Enterprise organizations. And we are talking about 17 million workplace messages here.
Yeah, that was originally studied by Chatterjee and a few other researchers. It's a massive data set.
Exactly. So our goal is to figure out what actually happens after a company adopts AI. Like, why isn't giving your employees a login enough to just magically boost productivity?
Right, it's not magic.
No, it's not. But before we get into the weeds, what exactly are we looking at when we say, enterprise AI versus what I just have on my phone?
Well, what's fascinating here is the distinction in architecture and intent. So when you or I use AI on our phones, it is fundamentally a consumer experience.
Meaning it's just for me.
Exactly. It's isolated. It is about personal utility for a really specific immediate task, like drafting an email or planning a trip or something.
Yeah.
But enterprise AI is an entirely different beast.
Yeah.
It is centrally administered. It has enhanced security, privacy protections, unlimited capacity.
And all those strict compliance frameworks built right into it.
Precisely. It is meant to be deeply integrated into the company's entire nervous system. And because of that structural difference, enterprise deployment reveals an organization's true institutional readiness.
Institutional readiness. I like that.
Yeah, it tests whether they have the structural maturity to actually transform how they work, not just, the budget to go buy software.
Right. So for you listening right now, just think about your own day-to-day work. Are you using AI to save time? Probably, right?
Most people are.
But is your company as a whole somehow still moving at the exact same speed it always has? If that sounds familiar, you are living inside what the research calls the productivity paradox 2.0.
And that paradox is just incredibly pervasive right now. The telemetry data shows, quite clearly, that individuals are absolutely saving time at their individual desks.
They really are.
Yeah. Heavy users are reporting time savings upwards of 10 hours a week. And even your average active users are saving 40 to 60 minutes daily.
Wow, an hour a day.
Right. But the catch is that when researchers look at the meta-analytic evidence across the aggregate output of the whole company, there is no robust, measurable link to overall company productivity.
That is wild.
The time is being saved by the person, but the company itself isn't moving any faster.
Okay, but that sounds completely illogical on the surface. If every single person in an office building is saving an hour a day, that building should be churning out significantly more work, right? Or at least operating cheaper. Where on earth is all that saved time going?
It basically just evaporates into the friction of the organization itself.
Friction, okay.
Yeah, there are a few key mechanisms driving this. First, you have to look at reallocation. That individual saved time might just be reallocated to low-value tasks.
Like what?
Well, let's say you save an hour using AI to write a quarterly report. Instead of using that newly freed hour to do deep strategic thinking, you spend it clearing out your inbox.
Oh, guilty as charged?
Right, or attending a pointless status meeting. The company gains literally nothing from that swap.
Ah, so the AI is basically just making us faster at doing busy work.
In many cases, yes, exactly. And the second mechanism is coordination costs.
Coordination costs.
Yeah, so if one person in a 5-step process finishes their part in 10 minutes using AI, but the next person in the workflow still takes 3 days to review and approve it manually, the overall system hasn't sped up at all.
Right, the bottleneck just shifted somewhere else.
Exactly.
Oh.
And third, there's what they call the quality verification tax.
Oh, the hallucination problem.
Yep. Generative models can hallucinate or produce these really subtle errors. So the time a worker saved generating the content is often spent, meticulously fact-checking and editing it to ensure it meets corporate standards.
Right, so it is far from a silver bullet. You can't just flick a switch. And the Chatterjee data tracks this behavioral shift beautifully.
It really does.
Like between June 2025 and March 2026, the aggregate ChatGPT Enterprise token output, which is basically the raw volume of work the AI was doing, that grew sevenfold.
Sevenfold in under a year.
But the really critical detail here is that half of that massive growth happened within companies that already had the software installed for a while.
Yeah.
Like their usage quadrupled over those 9 months.
And that specific data point shatters a massive myth in the tech world right now.
Which is?
It contradicts the assumption that organizations quickly reach a steady state of efficiency right after deployment. The reality is this gradual, often really messy diffusion.
It takes time.
Yeah, workers are constantly experimenting. They have to find new applications, test the boundaries of the model, and figure out how to integrate it deeper into highly specific niche tasks.
Yeah.
There's just not an overnight transition. It requires sustained engagement over months and even years.
It sounds remarkably similar to buying a gym membership. Like, the company buying the massive enterprise license is really just badging in at the front door.
That's a great way to put it.
Thanks. I mean, the fact that you badged in doesn't make you fit. The actual fitness comes from what you do on the floor, day after day, figuring out which machines work for your specific goals.
Well, exactly.
But I have to challenge this a little. Can every company actually figure this out? Because looking at the landscape, it feels like only a certain breed of organization is succeeding here. Are some companies just, I don't know, structurally incapable of getting fit?
Well, the financial DNA of these early adopters strongly suggests you might be right.
Really?
Yeah. The data shows they're not just companies with deeper pockets. They are structurally distinct entities.
Oh.
When the researchers linked the AI adoption telemetry data to public company financials, incredibly clear patterns emerged about who was actually succeeding.
Okay, what do those patterns look like in plain English?
Well, the raw size is definitely a factor, though maybe not the most interesting one. Early adopters tend to have a median revenue of $2.3 billion compared to just $210 million for non-adopters.
Wow, that's a huge gap.
Yeah, and they employ a median of about 2,900 workers versus 424. Their market valuation is massive in comparison to, like, $5 billion against $316 million.
Okay, so they are much bigger.
They are, but if we connect this to the bigger picture, the defining metric is not their headcount or their bank account. It is their intangible intensity.
Intangible intensity. Okay, let's translate that. Are we talking about investments in things you can't physically touch?
Exactly. We're talking about deep historical investments in research and development, proprietary software, and broad knowledge capital.
God.
The early adopters in this data set have a median R&D spending of $113 million. The non-adopters, a mere $10 million.
Oh, wow.
And crucially, the early adopters have significantly lower physical capital intensity. They don't rely heavily on massive physical property, manufacturing plants, or heavy equipment.
So what this proves is that AI success requires a baseline of accumulated capabilities. It's about managing knowledge workers and redesigning cognitive workflows.
Precisely.
Because, I mean, if your company has spent the last century optimizing a physical assembly line, just moving steel from point A to point B, you are going to severely struggle to optimize a cognitive assembly line, no matter how much you spend on the software license.
And that is the core barrier right there. The companies succeeding with AI today have already spent the last decade figuring out how to manage, train, and integrate highly complex digital technologies for their knowledge workers.
Right.
They have the institutional muscle memory for digital transformation. The companies that lack that muscle memory are essentially trying to sprint before they've learned to walk.
So to you listening, take a hard look at your own organization right now. Is your company built on moving physical assets, or is it built on manipulating intangible knowledge?
It's a vital question.
Because that structural reality might be the strongest predictor of how smoothly generative AI is going to integrate into your daily operations.
Absolutely.
But okay, that covers the macro level, like the whole building. But let's walk the floor. Let's look at the desk level reality. Who is actually sitting there typing in the prompts?
Well, you might intuitively assume that the heaviest usage would come from technical specialists, your engineers and developers, or perhaps the executive leadership team dictating the broader strategy.
Yeah, that would be my guess.
But the telemetry data shows that active use spans the entire organizational hierarchy. It is functioning as a true horizontal capability across almost every department.
Okay, but here's where it gets really interesting. Look at the breakdown of active users. Managers and directors make up 24% of the user base.
Hmm.
Individual contributors and professionals are 15%. Engineering is only 11%.
Right.
Executives sit at 9%. And finance is hovering around 5%. So it really is everywhere.
Yeah.
But participation is not the same thing as intensity, is it?
Not at all. And that is a crucial distinction to make. Someone in finance might log in, once a week to quickly draft an email or summarize a policy. That counts as participation. But when you look at the raw volume of messages being sent, the actual intensity of daily use, the demographics flip completely.
How so?
Marketing and communications workers, along with data analysts, send substantially more messages per week than executives, founders, or partners.
And the absolute most intense users,
Yeah.
the people practically living in the interface, early career workers and trainees.
Exactly.
The data shows they're sending 8 to 9 more weekly messages than the average active user within their own firm. They are the true power users here.
They really are.
And the research highlights that this dynamic acts as a massive accelerant. It compresses the skill distribution across the company. Like, a junior employee armed with AI can suddenly output work that looks remarkably close to what a senior tenured employee produces.
And that compression happens because of the underlying nature of their tasks.
Right.
Early career workers are generally tasked with high-volume, routine knowledge work.
Right, the grunt work.
Yeah, they are the ones doing the initial drafting, the endless summarizing, the baseline coding, and the foundational research. Generative AI is exceptionally adept at handling exactly those types of tasks.
Makes sense.
Furthermore, these junior workers have a much higher willingness to experiment because they aren't burdened by entrenched habits. They haven't spent 20 years doing a process one specific way, so they have nothing to unlearn.
But wait, this raises a huge red flag for me.
Oh.
If the junior staff are the power users and the executives only make up 9% of the active users and have much lower intensity, aren't those executives essentially flying blind?
Whoa.
Like, how can leadership effectively mandate an AI strategy for an entire corporation when they barely understand the experiential reality of the tools themselves?
That blind spot is precisely why the transition is stalling in so many organizations. Leadership teams are frequently treating generative AI like standard software procurement. They authorize the purchase, deploy the licenses, and expect an immediate, measurable ROI to appear on a quarterly spreadsheet. They don't understand the nuance of how the tool actually alters the daily cognitive load.
Yeah, they just see it as a line item.
Exactly. To fix this gap, organizations have to move far beyond just buying access. They have to start fundamentally rebuilding how work is accomplished. The research identifies a playbook for this, actually, detailing 5 evidence-based strategic priorities to realize enterprise value.
Okay, let's walk through that playbook, starting with the foundation, which is the data infrastructure. Because if the AI doesn't know your business, it can't help your business.
Exactly. Generative AI models are incredibly smart in a general sense, but out of the box, they have zero internal context about your specific company.
Right.
If you ask a generic model to diagnose a recurring failure on your specific factory floor, it will just give you generic troubleshooting advice. Leading companies bypass this by building the plumbing first.
And the research points to Corning Manufacturing as a prime example of this, right? Because instead of just giving their operators a basic chat interface, Corning actually integrated all of their historical maintenance logs, real-time production data, and specific machine manuals directly into the AI's environment.
They grounded the model in their own reality. So when an operator asks a question, the AI isn't just scraping the public internet. It is searching Corning's specific proprietary institutional history to predict failures and offer actionable solutions.
That is so smart.
It is. Salesforce did something very similar with their Customer 360 platform. They spent years building an interconnected data infrastructure so that the AI could access a unified view of every single customer interaction.
Okay.
AI is only as valuable as the proprietary data it can access. If your company's data is trapped in department silos or buried inside people's personal inboxes, the AI is starved of the context it needs to be useful.
That makes total sense. You have to build the pipes. But once the pipes are built, you hit the second major hurdle, which is access. You can't just lock the superpowered AI in a room with the data science team and expect the company to transform.
Definitely not.
You have to let everyone use it. The source talks about Deloitte's AI Dojo initiative, which I honestly think is brilliant.
It is a highly effective approach. Deloitte didn't try to mandate exactly how the tool should be used from the top down. Instead, they gave consultants across all their various service lines broad access to the enterprise tools.
Yeah.
They created these dojos, essentially communities of practice, where workers could experiment safely and then share whatever workflows they were discovering with each other.
It relies entirely on bottom-up innovation. I mean, if you restrict access to only certain approved roles, or worse, if you make employees fill out a requisition form to get approval for every little experiment, you completely suffocate that continuous discovery process we talked about earlier.
You kill it completely.
People need the psychological safety to play with the tool, break things, and figure out where the actual value lies in their specific day-to-day.
Which naturally leads us to the third, and perhaps the most complex, strategic priority: redesigning workflows, not just isolated tasks.
Workflows, not tasks. Right. This is where the vast majority of companies are currently failing. The meta-analytic evidence is very clear on this point. If you simply drop generative AI into an existing human-centric workflow, you can actually reduce the overall performance of the team.
Okay, I need you to explain the mechanism there, because it sounds completely counterintuitive. How does adding a super smart digital assistant to a process actually make the process worse?
Because that existing workflow was carefully designed over years to accommodate human limitations and leverage human strengths.
Okay.
Let's say you have a 5-step process, and you simply swap out the human in step 2 for an AI agent. You haven't accounted for the fact that the human in step 2 used to subtly check for errors from step 1, or that they implicitly coordinated with the person in step 3 to ensure smooth handoffs.
Ah, I see.
The AI doesn't have that implicit social understanding. It just executes the task blindly. You can't just automate an isolated task. You have to deconstruct and redesign the entire assembly line from scratch.
The Accenture case study in the research perfectly illustrates how to do this right. They didn't just tell their corporate lawyers, hey, here's a new tool, use it to write your contracts faster.
No, they didn't.
They redesigned the entire flow of legal work. They set it up so the AI generates the initial drafts based on specific parameters, automated systems handle the routine approvals and routing, and the human legal specialists only step in to focus on high-level negotiation strategy and nuanced risk assessment.
They completely decoupled the rote document production from the strategic cognitive thinking. The humans were removed from the drafting entirely.
Wow.
And the result of that total workflow redesign, they reduced their contract cycle time by 60%.
60%? That is insane.
They didn't just try to make a faster caterpillar, they actually built a butterfly.
That is a phenomenal way to look at it. But redesigning a workflow like that brings up the fourth priority, which is the human dimension.
Yes, crucial.
Because technology almost always fails for human reasons, not technical ones. If people are terrified that this butterfly is going to make them redundant, they are not going to teach the AI how to do their jobs.
It is the ultimate change management imperative. The research highlights that worker anxiety, mental health impacts, and profound job insecurity are massive structural roadblocks to enterprise adoption.
Yeah, of course they are.
Workers are deeply worried about de-skilling or being held legally accountable for errors the AI might make. IBM is highlighted as a major success story in navigating this.
What did they do?
They didn't just roll out the tech, they established an AI ethics board and laid down clear, transparent principles stating that AI is designed to assist rather than replace human decision makers.
And crucially, when the AI does drastically change the nature of a role, IBM actually provides robust reskilling programs and clear internal mobility paths. It completely defangs the fear of obsolescence.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want your employees to actively collaborate with this technology and train it on their tacit knowledge, you have to practically guarantee that doing so won't result in them getting a pink slip.
Precisely. The psychological contract has to be rewritten. And finally, the fifth priority is strategic focus. The overarching temptation for leadership is to try and boil the ocean.
To mandate that AI be used for absolutely everything simultaneously.
Exactly. But the evidence shows that tightly focused deployment always outperforms diffuse, scattershot experimentation.
And the ChatGPT telemetry data shows us exactly where that immediate value actually lives. 56% of users are heavily focused on documentation and technical writing.
Right.
Another 50% are focused on technical digital work, like coding. The underlying mechanism here is that organizations need to target high-frequency, high-variation tasks.
Yes.
You want to aim the AI at the things your company does repeatedly every single day, but that have just enough contextual variation that a simple, old-school, rules-based software couldn't automate them previously. Writing a custom client brief, for example.
This raises an important question. How do organizations actually develop all of this? How does a traditional company build what the research terms AI-augmented work design expertise?
Right.
Because you certainly cannot buy that expertise from a software vendor.
No, you absolutely can't. It requires years of complementary investment. You need robust knowledge management systems, comprehensive training infrastructure, and meticulous process documentation.
It's a huge undertaking.
You have to capture all the tacit, unwritten knowledge floating around in your employees' heads so the AI can actually use it. It is an incredibly heavy lift.
It's a multi-year, often painful organizational transformation. The companies that are treating this moment as a simple software license renewal are going to be rapidly left behind by the companies treating it as a fundamental structural evolution.
So, what does this all mean? When we step back and look at the deployment paradox in its entirety, the core takeaway is that generative AI is what economists call a general purpose technology, or a GPT. It is exactly like the advent of electricity or the internet. Just running electrical wires into your factory didn't automatically make you profitable if you were still strictly using steam engine workflows and floor plans.
Right, you had to redesign the factory.
Exactly. The economic impact of AI depends entirely on deep organizational integration, redesigning workflows from beginning to end, and sustaining a relentless culture of experimentation. Adoption, as the numbers show, is really just the starting line.
It's just the badge that gets you in the door. And if we follow that logic, it leads to a rather profound implication for the future of work that we haven't fully grappled with yet.
What's that?
We established earlier that early career workers are the power users here.
Right, the juniors.
The technology is compressing the skill gap, allowing junior staff to output work at a near veteran level. If these tools are fundamentally leveling the playing field of baseline knowledge production, how will companies redefine what it actually means to be a senior expert in 5 or 10 years?
Oh, wow. That completely upends the traditional model.
Think about it. If the traditional corporate ladder is built on a foundation of junior people doing the high-volume drafting and grunt work, while senior people do the high-level strategy and review, well, what happens to the structural integrity of that ladder when the juniors have an AI that does the grunt work for them perfectly?
And then they suddenly have the time and bandwidth to think strategically themselves.
Exactly. What value does the senior partner bring if experience in drafting is no longer a scarce resource?
That is a wild thought to leave on. The badge gets you in the door, but the gym floor is going to look completely unrecognizable in 5 years. We might not even know how to use the new equipment. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the tools you use, keep experimenting, and keep learning.